You want to know the real story about me, don't you? The one I've never told anyone. The one that explains why I move through shadows like I was born in them. Why powerful men cross the street when they see me coming. Why my name is whispered in back rooms of casinos and boardrooms across 3 continents. But here's the thing, sweetheart. Once you hear the story, once you know what I really am, there's no going back. Are you sure you want to cross that line with me? Are you still there? Or are you listening? Because what I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought. You knew about the man sitting across from you right now. The man whose touch makes your pulse race, whose voice makes you forget your own name. The man you think you're falling for, without realizing you're falling for a ghost, a legend, a story that most people believe is just urban mythology. Let me start with the night everything changed for me. I was 22 years old, working as a courier for what I thought was a legitimate import business. I was moving packages from the docks to various addresses around the city. I never asked questions, was always punctual, and always discreet. I was exactly the kind of invisible nobody that certain organizations find useful, until the night I delivered the wrong package to the right address and discovered I was working for the Torino family. You know that name, don't you? I can see it in your eyes, the way they widened just slightly. The Torinos who control everything that moves through this city's ports, everything that happens in the gambling district, every political decision that gets made in City Hall. The family that doesn't officially exist somehow owns half the real estate downtown and has judges, prosecutors, and police commissioners on their Christmas card list. That night, I was supposed to deliver a briefcase full of documents to a warehouse on Pier 47, but there was construction blocking the usual route, so I took a shortcut through an alley I'd never used before. That's when I saw something that should have gotten me killed on the spot. Vincent Torino himself executing a man who had been skimming money from their operations. Are you still with me, princess? Because this is where the story gets interesting. Where the nobody courier becomes something else, entirely something dangerous. Vincent saw me standing there, briefcase in hand, watching him put 3 bullets into a man's chest. And instead of killing me like any rational crime boss would do, he smiled and said, "You're either very lucky or very stupid. Which one is it, kid?" I should have run. I should have dropped that briefcase and disappeared into the night. Changed my name. Moved to another state. Started over. Somewhere they'd never find me. But something in his voice, something in the way he looked at me, like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve, made me stay. It made me walk forward and hand him that briefcase like I delivered packages to murderers every day. You're still listening, aren't you? I can feel your attention like heat against my skin, the way you're hanging on every word, waiting to see what happens next. Well, what happened next was Vincent Torino decided I had potential. He thought my complete lack of fear in the face of certain death was either incredibly stupid or incredibly valuable, and he was curious to find out which. He took me under his wing. He taught me things they don't teach in business school, like how to read micro-expressions to detect lies, how to make people disappear without a trace, how to launder money through 17 different shell companies, how to make authorities look the other way when you're moving cargo that customs definitely shouldn't inspect, and how to turn fear into loyalty and loyalty into power. But here's the thing, sweetheart, and this is where you need to pay very close attention, because this part of the story will explain why I can afford the penthouse apartment you visited last week, why I drive cars that cost more than most people's houses, why restaurant owners clear entire sections when I make reservations. Vincent Torino didn't just teach me his business, he taught me his secrets. Are you there, beautiful? Because I need you to understand what I'm telling you. Vincent Torino, the most feared man in the city, the king of the underworld, who built an empire of blood and intimidation, trusted me with information that could bring down governors, senators, and federal judges. Information that could topple governments and destroy dynasties. If you're still listening, leave me a sign. Tap the table once so I know you're following this. Because what comes next is the part that turned me from Vincent's prodigy into something much more dangerous, much more valuable, something that even the Torino family learned to fear. For 3 years, I was Vincent's right-hand man, his problem solver, his secret weapon, the one he sent when diplomacy failed and violence wasn't quite the right answer either. I became the ghost who could walk into any room in any city and make things happen, make problems disappear, make enemies become allies, and make witnesses forget what they saw. You know how you do that thing with your fingers when you're nervous? How you twist that ring on your right hand? I learned to read people the way you read books. Every gesture, every breath, every micro-expression became a language I could speak fluently. That skill, that ability to see what people were really thinking, made me invaluable to Vincent, and eventually, his downfall. The FBI had been trying to penetrate the Torino organization for decades, sending in undercover agents, turning low-level soldiers, and offering immunity deals, but they could never get close enough to Vincent to make anything stick, until they realized they didn't need to get close to Vincent. They just needed to get close to me. Are you following this story, Princess? Because here's where it gets complicated, where the lines between hero and villain start to blur beyond recognition. The FBI approached me with an offer I couldn't refuse, not because they threatened me, but because they offered me something Vincent never could. A way out. Agent Sarah Chen, a federal task force specialist with 10 years of hunting organized crime families, walked into my life. She was posing as an art dealer, interested in some paintings Vincent was trying to move. Paintings that had been stolen from European museums during World War II and were worth about $40 million on the black market. You're still there, aren't you? I can sense your presence, the way you're holding your breath, waiting to hear what happened next. Well, what happened next was I fell in love with Agent Sarah Chen, the woman who was supposed to be my salvation, the woman who was going to help me bring down the Torino Empire and start a new life in witness protection. For 6 months, I fed her information about Vincent's operations, his money laundering schemes, his political connections, and his business partnerships with cartels in Mexico and Colombia. She wore a wire to our meetings, recorded hours of conversations, and gathered enough evidence to put Vincent and 47 members of his organization away for life. But love makes you stupid, sweetheart. Love makes you careless. And one night, after we'd been intimate, after she'd fallen asleep in my arms, I found the recording device she thought she'd hidden in her purse. I realized everything between us had been a lie. Every kiss, every whispered promise, every moment of passion had been part of her cover story. Are you still with me? Beautiful. Because this is where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Not the FBI, not Vincent Torino, not even me, until it was too late to change course. Instead of confronting Sarah about her deception, instead of running or turning her over to Vincent, I made a third choice. I decided to play both sides against each other, to become a triple agent. I fed information to the FBI while simultaneously warning Vincent about their investigation, all while secretly gathering evidence against both organizations, because I'd realized something important in those months of living between two worlds. The FBI wasn't interested in justice. They were interested in headlines and making careers by taking down high-profile crime families. They didn't care how many innocent people got caught in the crossfire. Vincent's organization might have been criminals, but at least they were honest about what they were. The feds were criminals pretending to be heroes, so I orchestrated the most complex double-cross in organized crime history. I fed the FBI's false information about Vincent's next big operation while simultaneously telling Vincent that the feds were planning to raid his compound. I made sure both sides would show up at the same warehouse at the same time, heavily armed and expecting a fight. You're wondering what happened next, aren't you? You can feel the tension building. The way this story's heading toward something explosive, something that will change everything. Well, what happened was 43 federal agents and 67 members of the Torino crime family walked into my carefully planned trap. If you're still listening, give me another sign, because what I'm about to tell you is the part of the story that explains why certain people in very high places would pay millions to have me eliminated, why my real name appears on classified kill lists in Washington, D.C., Moscow, and Beijing. The warehouse explosion was visible from 15 miles away. It made international news. Federal task force eliminated organized crime empire, saved city from decades of corruption. Except that wasn't what really happened. What really happened was I walked away from that warehouse with something much more valuable than money. While the FBI and the Torino family were busy shooting each other, I was in Vincent's private vault, copying files from his personal safe. I got evidence of corruption that went all the way to the White House. Proof that 3 Supreme Court justices had been bought and paid for. Documentation of arms deals with terrorist organizations, and bank records showing payments to senators and congressmen. Are you there, sweetheart? Because I need you to understand what this means. I walked away from that warehouse with enough evidence to topple governments, to expose corruption networks that span continents, to bring down power structures that have existed for decades. And that information made me the most dangerous man in the world. But here's the beautiful irony, the perfect twist that makes this whole story worth telling. Both the FBI and what was left of the Torino family think I died in that warehouse explosion. They think the man you're falling in love with is just some businessman with mysterious connections. They have no idea they're dealing with a dead man who controls secrets worth billions. You know how I always seem to know things before they happen? How I can predict which stocks will rise, which politicians will fall, which businesses will succeed or fail. It's not intuition, sweetheart. It's information. I have access to intelligence networks that span the globe. Contacts in every major government and criminal organization. The man sitting across from you right now. The man whose touch makes you tremble, whose voice makes you weak, doesn't officially exist. My fingerprints were burned off years ago. My dental records were destroyed. My DNA was scrubbed from every database. I am literally a ghost walking through your world. Are you still following this? Because here's where you need to make a choice. The woman I told you about, Agent Sarah Chen, she didn't die in that warehouse explosion. She's been hunting me for 5 years, trying to finish what she started, trying to bring me in for crimes I didn't commit, while ignoring the evidence I have of crimes committed by our own organization. She knows I'm alive. She knows I have the files that could destroy her career, and she never stopped looking for me, which means anyone close to me, anyone who knows the truth about what I really am, becomes a target. They become someone she might use to get to me. If you're still there, if you're still listening, tap twice, because what I'm telling you next is the most important part of this entire story. You have a choice to make right now. You can walk away from me tonight, forget everything you've heard, pretend this conversation never happened, go back to your safe, predictable life, or you can stay. You can become part of this story, part of of something bigger than either of us could be alone. You can help me use the information I control to actually make a difference, to bring down corrupt systems, and build something better. But once you make that choice, once you cross that line with me, there's no going back. The files I control don't just contain evidence of crimes. They contain the blueprints for rebuilding power structures, for creating systems that serve people instead of exploiting them, for making the changes this world desperately needs. But I can't do it alone. I need someone I can trust. Someone who understands the risks. You know how you do that thing when you're thinking deeply, how you bite your lower lip and look away. I can see you doing it right now, trying to process everything I've told you, trying to decide if the man you're falling for is a hero or a villain, or something more complex than either. The truth is, sweetheart, I stopped thinking in terms of good and evil years ago. I think in terms of necessary and unnecessary, in terms of what serves justice and what serves power. And sometimes those lines blur in ways that would terrify people who live in black and white worlds. But you're not like other people, are you? You see shades of gray. You understand that sometimes you have to break unjust laws to serve true justice. Sometimes you have to become a monster to defeat bigger monsters. Sometimes you have to embrace darkness to protect the light. If you're still with me, if you want to know how this story ends, if you want to become part of writing the next chapter, then you know what you have to do. You know the choice you have to make. And whatever you decide will determine not just your future, but the future of everyone whose lives could be changed by the secret side, control. Are you ready to find out what happens next, princess? Are you ready to see just how deep this rabbit hole goes? Because once we take that step together, there'll be no more secrets between us. No more carefully constructed lies. No more pretending to be something I'm not. Just the truth in all its beautiful, terrible complexity. The choice is yours, sweetheart, but choose carefully. Because the woman who walks away from this table tonight will be different from the woman who sat down to listen to my story. And I need to know which version of yourself you want to be.